We are still some ways away from Thailand being confirmed as a host of a future Formula One race, but plans certainly seem to have some real momentum behind them. In fact, I think the question is less a case of will the country receive itself a Grand Prix, and more along the lines of where exactly it's going to be held in Thailand. Those hoping for a Bangkok circuit that winds its way around the city's famous temples shouldn't get their hopes up. While that has long been mulled as the potential location for any Thailand Grand Prix, a recent pivot to another site in the country means racing is very unlikely to come to the streets of the Thai capital. Quite frankly, that's probably for the best. So where will Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, and friends be revving their engines in the kingdom? I am Cheyenne Hollis, this is The Touchback, and here is everything you need to know about the proposed Thailand F1 racetrack.
I never went to Thailand.
Really?
I went to Fort Lauderdale.
With Formula One already having a presence in Fort Lauderdale, or technically Miami, there isn't much concern about a bait and switch here with a Thailand Grand Prix. Regardless of that, we should first take a look at the history of a potential Grand Prix in Thailand in order to better understand what the future does hold. In 1939, a first ever Bangkok Grand Prix was scheduled to take place in September on a track, a 2-mile track that would wind its way around all of Bangkok's famed palaces and sites. However, the outbreak of World War II meant that race never ever took place. There have been various attempts to bring F1 to the city in the years since then. Mark Webber even came and did some practice laps along the Thai capital's Old Royal Road in 2010 as part of Red Bull's attempts to get the government to support a race. Those efforts appeared to have worked, with plans for a Bangkok street circuit finalized in 2013. With those in hand, Thailand's Ministry of Sport announced that it was going to bid for an F1 race in 2015. Locals, though, were not super in love with the idea of shutting down their neighborhoods and in some cases their livelihoods for these super loud cars to roam the streets. And then in 2014, Thailand suffered another military coup and everything was put on ice. In the past year or so, rumblings have occurred that an F1 race was back on Thailand's agenda, with the country's new government looking for ways to boost Thailand's tourism appeal. This speculation became even more rampant when Thailand's prime minister was spotted walking the grid at Imola. The general thought process here had been organizers would simply dust off those old plans for a Bangkok street circuit. Instead, they took a hard left turn to an entirely different location in an entirely different part of the country, Utapao International Airport. On the surface, this may seem to some like a curious decision. In reality, it actually does make quite a bit of sense when you sit down to think about it. Oh yeah, we should probably talk a little bit more about this location in particular, since many of you out there aren't necessarily familiar with Utapao Airport. Also known as Utapao Rayong Pattaya International Airport, the facility is located along Thailand's eastern seaboard. The closest major city is Pattaya, while Bangkok is roughly 90 miles or so away. Right now, though, there isn't really a hell of a lot out there. It's just this old Navy airport that had been converted into civilian usage. There's a lot of domestic flights that go to and from the airport, as well as a few international destinations. That, though, is going to be changing. It is currently being revamped, renovated, reimagined into what is being dubbed the Eastern Airport City. This is a massive project that's going to expand the airport, build a bunch of other stuff out there catering to tourism, and there even may be a soccer stadium here. Most interestingly is that in a recent interview, the CEO of this huge project mentioned that land had actually been previously set aside for a Formula One racetrack. Not only that, but it had been included in the project's first phase. This, of course, was done very quietly. None of the project's renderings that have been released to the public included anything remotely resembling a racetrack of any sorts. This part of the development has been kept completely under wraps. Well, that isn't necessarily unusual for a project of this size and scale. Most of the location talk surrounding a potential Thailand F1 Grand Prix before that revelation had centered once again on Bangkok. In fact, everyone was really focused on the Thai capital and that proposed street circuit. Apparently, that was never on the cards in the most recent push for an F1 race. Given Bangkok's unrelenting gridlock, and the inability of folks in the city to agree on just about anyway, I think this is a pretty wise decision overall. That may disappoint some F1 fans out there, but life isn't Fast and the Furious. Plopping down an F1 Grand Prix in the heart of Bangkok would have been a nightmare. A nightmare for people living in the city, a nightmare for people visiting the city, just an utter nightmare. Besides, the Thai capital doesn't need to worry about bringing in more tourists. People come here regardless, F1 race or not. For the Thai government, though, getting more folks down to the eastern seaboard has been a long-standing priority. Even if it's not as sexy as a potential Bangkok street circuit, I do believe there are reasons to be optimistic around this location for an F1 racetrack in Thailand. First, we know the course will be situated on the air side of the airport. When you look at the renderings, you can kind of get a better idea on where exactly the placement can be potentially. This is speculation on my part, but when you look at the project, when you look at what's available, this plot of land that extends all the way to the sea is the most logical area for a potential racetrack. In fact, I'd hazard a guess and say the Gulf of Thailand is going to be a huge part of the circuit's design, which means I envision the main straightaway running parallel to the water. I'm even inclined to think that the main grandstand is going to have sea views in it. While the Jeddah circuit has similar characteristics, being a night race sort of renders that feature moot. A big selling point, perhaps the most prominent selling point for Thailand tourism, is the country's beaches. Having F1 cars driving alongside the Gulf of Thailand, well, it just creates that lasting image, that postcard, that just unique selling point for Thailand. It would serve as both a significant feature for the track and an impressive visual that sells tourism, Thailand tourism. That brings us to the main issue surrounding any potential Thailand Formula One race. When do you hold it? I'm talking both in terms of time of day and on the calendar. A night race would be a massive waste of money. The whole point of bringing an F1 race is to be seen. A night race by Utapao International Airport would be very visually boring. An early evening race that ends shortly after sunset or in twilight or whatever the case may be, as long as there's natural light out, I think the race is good. But putting any part of it under lights is a huge mistake. In order to have a race at that time during the day, well, it kind of limits the calendar dates available to you. March and April, or really mid-March into April and even early May, are just going to be too damn hot, even at a 5 p.m., 6 p.m. start. The rainy season begins in mid-May, early June, and runs through October. Ideally, Thailand would want a February, March, or November race. But given the current F1 calendar, that's going to require some sort of rejig reshuffling. On the surface, pairing the Thailand Grand Prix next to the Singapore Grand Prix and moving both races to some point after the Americas leg of the calendar would most likely suit everyone. But given the politics involved, is that even going to happen? Hell, is Singapore even going to have a race after 2028? I mean, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered on that. Simply put, it is just complicated to organize a Thailand Grand Prix, to find a time that works best for everyone. But if you're going to race at night in Thailand, well, you might as well put the damn thing at the Buriram circuit. As some of you may know, this is already used by MotoGP, and if you're going to race under the lights, the differences between having it in Buriram and having it at a new track on Thailand's eastern seaboard are going to be minimal. Sorry, but no amount of stock shots during the day and the announcers commentating on how wonderful this region is, how Thailand is truly amazing, changes that. Racing at night doesn't give you the visual you want to sell Thailand tourism. And in that regard, you just can't have this race at night. Another concern some may have is placing a race in what seems like the middle of nowhere. For some, Malaysia's Sepang International Circuit and its location next to KLIA, the Kuala Lumpur International Airport, may spring to mind. On the surface, I think you can see some comparisons between the two, although I don't know if these are as similar as you may think. In fact, it's not really a like-for-like comparison at all. While both are close to airports, there has never been any real development around Sepang. There should be a lot of stuff built around a Utapao airport circuit. Additionally, it may even offer some convenient connections or transport options. It could be connected to Bangkok by a high-speed rail link. I mean, in theory, this is supposed to happen. The project, though, it's hit a few snags and won't be completed until 2029 at the earliest. Even if that doesn't exist, there's still going to be a lot happening at the Eastern Airport City. It's designed as this huge lifestyle entertainment center. In fact, it's going to be one of the few areas in Thailand that allows entertainment options at bars, restaurants, clubs, whatever the case may be, to stay open to operate 24 hours a day. At the very least, it certainly won't be as isolated as Sepang is in Malaysia. The Thailand circuit will be a short drive away from the infamous resort city of Pattaya, if that's your thing, I suppose. Ultimately, work is still to be done on Thailand's bid to host a Formula One race. Plenty can go wrong between now and a potential 2028 event. But the location of the country's proposed circuit, while not in Bangkok, still has a lot of potential. It still has reason for folks to be optimistic. That is assuming they don't make it a night race or cut corners on track design. You never know how that's going to play out. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to know more about what it's like to take a sports trip in Seoul, South Korea, video upper right hand corner of your screen is the place to go. Until next time, I'm Cheyenne Hollis. This is The Touchback. And as always, hashtag take it out to the 25.